Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Writing Unalone, Open Literary Love Letters. I'm Monica Prince, and I'm so excited to share with you once again one of the fabulous love letters in my life in preparation for the publication of my choreopoem Roadmap. Roadmap comes out from SFWP on July 1st, and you should pre-order it today if you're one of the few who hasn't done that yet. So today's open literary love letter is actually for a former professor of mine. So in graduate school, I had the honor of being one of the students of Professor Laura Newbern. Professor Laura Newbern is an incredible human being. She is a fabulous poet, and she taught me a lot about restraints and form and all kinds of fabulous things about poetry. Though she wasn't my thesis advisor, I did enjoy the classes I took with her. So why am I bringing up the incredible Laura Newbern? I'm bringing up Laura Newbern because she's actually one of the people who taught me the Oulipian constraint. So you're asking yourself, what's a Oulipian constraint? Don't get ahead of yourselves. First, let's talk about the Oulipos. The Oulipos were a group of Francophone mathematicians and poets who wanted to enhance the way literature was created using strict restrictions or restraints, as we might say. And so Oulipo actually stands for Ouvroir de littérature potentielle, or translated workshop for potential literature. And they were formed in the 1960s, and they were just a bunch of cool people who wanted to write, but also wanted that writing to not just be flowery and beautiful. They wanted it to mean something. And they wanted it to mean something in the sense of what happens when we play with language. So a lot of the Oulipian constraints were around the idea of play, which I think is really cool. So one of the ones I was taught was from this fabulous Laura Newbern, one of our classes. She explained to us what a Oulipian constraint was. So Oulipian constraint, in the case that I'm talking about, is the specific one I'm talking about is the lipogram. So the lipogram is essentially you take a word, any word, and there's multiple ways to do this lipogram, but the way I do it is you take one word, whatever that word is, and utilizing that word, you are going to determine how many stanzas are in the poem. So the example I always give is dog. So you have your word dog, and that means you have 3 stanzas in your poem. So your first stanza, you cannot use the letter D, the first letter of dog, but you have to use all the other letters in the alphabet. So you have to use the Z's, the K's, the Q's, the W's, all that good stuff. The reason for that is that and then with the next stanza, you have to use all the letters except for O. And then the final stanza, you have to use all the letters except for G. So essentially the idea is that because you are restrained from talking about something specific, your mind actually forces you to talk about it in ways that maybe you weren't aware of. So by doing these Oulipian constraints, or lipograms specifically, which Laura Newbern also called the beautiful outlaw, by doing it this way, you are forcing your brain to think through your own vocabulary and to expand the words you typically use to express something. So when you can't use the letter E, do you change the articles that you use? If you can't use the letter A, do you change the types of verbs that you use, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? I bring all this up because there's one Oulipian constraint, specifically one beautiful outlaw in Roadmap, and it is called Black Boys Are Missing, and it is a beautiful outlaw for the word suicide. And essentially, it's a very important poem because it helps us put into context generational trauma and how we inherit it. But more importantly, it talks about a serious issue that we do not discuss in the Black community, which is that young people in the Black community also self-harm, that it's not just a whites only thing. It's a very upsetting poem, but I love it. It's actually quite good. And it references Gwendolyn Brooks's We Real Cool. So if you are excited to see what that looks like, I strongly encourage you to pre-order Roadmap today. Laura Newbern, thank you so much for teaching me this wild poetry form that I now pass on to other people and torture them with. I appreciate you giving me this form and all the wonderful advice and pedagogy you filled me up with during our time together at Georgia College and State University. If you haven't taken a class with Laura Newbern yet, you're missing out. Go do it today. Find a way. And for those of you who have, you all know how wonderful she is. That's all for today. But that doesn't mean the party has to stop. You could continue being part of this wonderful movement by A, posting your own open literary love letter to someone who's strongly influenced your work, or B, and by or, I mean and, pre-ordering my choreopoem roadmap. It comes out July 1st. You're running out of time. Today is the 17th. You're running out of time. You've got to do it. Have a wonderful day. And I can't wait to see you again tomorrow.